Welcome to our deep dive into cybersecurity. Today we're going way beyond the usual stuff, firewalls and passwords. We're looking at how human behavior can really make or break a company's defenses against cyber attacks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
We've got some interesting formulas and frameworks to explore, like this thing called PAIR. Have you ever heard of that?
I have.
And then there's DERMA. So basically, ever wondered if there's a way to actually measure how prepared a company is for a cyber attack? Not just looking at their tech, but how their people actually act.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept.
Well, that's what we're going to dive into today.
Absolutely. And often, the human element, that's the wild card, right?
Right.
The most unpredictable thing in cybersecurity.
Totally. So let's start with this PAIR formula. It's basically an equation that tries to calculate how strong a company's cyber defenses are, specifically taking into account the human factor. The formula is H of CS equals P plus E times A plus R.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
I know it's a little complicated when you just hear the letters and stuff. So let me break it down. Each letter represents a key factor. So P is from precautionary measures. E, education and awareness.
Okay.
A stands for adherence to protocols. So basically, how well do people actually follow the rules?
Right.
And then R, responsiveness to emerging threats. So how quickly can a company adapt to the latest nasty stuff out there?
Exactly. And that's key these days.
Right, it's huge. Things change so fast.
Things change so fast.
So if a company, let's say, invests a ton in, multi-factor authentication, that would be part of P.
Right.
And they have amazing training programs for E, they're already on the right track.
Absolutely. You're hitting the nail on the head. It's all about those proactive measures, building that culture of security awareness. That's what boosts a company's resilience.
But it's not just about one thing, right?
Yeah.
It's how all these things work together.
Exactly. A high score in one area, it can't make up for a big weakness somewhere else. It's about the whole picture.
Got it. So to actually put numbers on this, the source material gives us this matrix with scores from 1 to 5 for each element. So for example, under precautionary measures, if a company has super strong multi-factor authentication, they'd score a 4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
But if they have weak authentication, they might be down at a 1 or 2.
Exactly. And that scoring system, it helps you see the nuances of each factor,
Right.
right? And ultimately, all of that feeds into the overall peer score, which can range from 9 all the way up to 81.
Wow, that's quite a range.
Yeah, and it breaks down into low, medium, and high. You know those bands, those categories.
So what do those score bands actually tell us about a company's vulnerability?
Okay, so let's say a company gets a low score between 9 and 29. Now that's a red flag.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it usually means they lack basic security measures and awareness. They're very vulnerable. Think of it like having a flimsy door with a weak lock, easy target.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Then you have the medium score, 30 to 51. They have some foundation, but there are cracks. They might have good precautionary measures, but maybe they don't always follow the rules, or they're slow to react to new threats.
It's like having a good door, but sometimes you forget to lock it.
Exactly.
So they have potential, but they're not quite there yet.
Right.
Okay. What about the high scores?
All right. So high score, 52 to 81. That's what you want to see. Strong proactive cybersecurity. They've got the tough measures, the awareness, and they can adapt fast, like a well-defended fortress.
Okay. That's a good visual.
Right.
Yeah. But PAIR, that's mainly about the human side. What about the actual systems themselves?
Yeah.
How complicated they are? Does that factor in?
Absolutely. That's where system complexity comes into play, and we measure that with this formula, CI equals sigma CI divided by N,
Okay.
where CI represents the cybersecurity resilience of the system. Sigma CR is the sum of the complexity factors for each component in the system, and N is the total number of components.
So if we're talking about a network with, let's say, 21 different components, servers, workstations, firewalls, the whole shebang,
Right.
each one has its own complexity score. We add those all up. Divide by the total number of components.
Yep.
Got it. But why is a simpler system generally considered to be more secure?
Well, think of it this way. The more complex a system is, the more potential entry points there are for attackers, right? And it's harder to manage security effectively. Imagine trying to secure a house with like dozens of doors and windows compared to a house with just a few. That simpler house is just inherently easier to secure.
Okay, that makes sense. So in our example with the 21 components, a lower CS score would mean a less complex system and therefore potentially better security.
You got it.
Let's say this network has a CS score of 2.29. Relatively low.
Yeah, relatively manageable
Okay.
from a security perspective.
But even with a simple network, there's still a lot more to consider. right?
Oh, absolutely. You can't just rely on simplicity. You need to be prepared for those attacks. How quickly and effectively can an organization respond to an incident?
Right. So even with a low CS score, there's no room for complacency.
No, not at
You
all.
got to be ready for when those attacks happen, which they will.
They will happen.
Yeah.
And you need to be prepared.
So incident response capability, that's a big one, right?
Huge.
Do they have the right plans in place?
Yeah, do they have the right people?
Right.
Can they actually detect, contain, and remediate a cyber attack?
And then there's the human element again. Are employees trained?
Yeah.
Do they know what to look out for?
Are they aware of the threats?
Do they follow those security protocols?
Are the technical controls strong?
Right.
Firewalls, intrusion detection systems.
It's a lot.
It's multi-layered.
A lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
Speaking of challenges, let's talk about Dermodynamic Incident Response Maturity Assessment. That's a mouthful.
I know, right?
What makes this framework so special?
Well, DERMA, it goes beyond those static checklists and theoretical scenarios. It's all about simulating real-world cyber attacks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It throws curveballs at an organization
Okay.
to see how they respond under pressure. That's like a live-fire exercise
Interesting.
for cybersecurity teams.
So it's not just pass or fail.
No.
It's about giving them feedback and insights in real time
Right.
to help them figure out where they're strong and where they need to improve in a dynamic setting.
Exactly. And it's all about continuous improvement, right?
Okay.
You run these simulations, you get that feedback,
Yeah.
and then you use that to refine your plans and get better.
So it's like this constant feedback loop,
Exactly.
allowing companies to keep up with the bad guys.
The bad guys,
Yeah.
yeah, constantly evolving, constantly getting better. That's the name of the game.
Okay, so DERMA sounds incredibly valuable.
Oh, it is.
But how do you actually measure something that's so dynamic and unpredictable?
That's a great question. And you're right, it is dynamic, but we can quantify it. There are 5 key elements we use to assess an organization's performance.
5 elements.
5 elements.
Tell me more.
Okay, so the first one is the Threat Scenario Simulation Score, or TSS.
Okay.
It measures how well they detect and respond to those simulated attacks, speed, accuracy, effectiveness. Those are all part of the score.
So being able to quickly spot and neutralize those threats, that's key.
Absolutely. Then we have the Real-Time Response Exercise Score, or RRS, and that focuses on how they perform during those intense real-time simulations. Did they follow their plan? Did they communicate effectively?
Right.
Did they make good decisions under pressure?
That sounds stressful.
It can be,
Yeah.
but it gives you a real snapshot of their capabilities.
Yeah, okay. What else?
Okay, number 3, the Cross-Functional Collaboration Score, or CCS. And this is all about teamwork. How well do different departments work together during an incident? Are security, legal, management, are they all on the same page?
Right, so everybody's got to be coordinated.
Exactly, like a well-choreographed dance.
Yeah, I like that.
Everybody moving in sync. Okay. Number 4, the Continuous Improvement Score, or CIS.
Okay.
This one looks at their dedication to learning and adapting. Do they analyze their past incidents? Do they update their plans based on what they've learned?
Right.
Are they always trying to get better?
That's important.
It's essential because cybersecurity, it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
And finally, we have the overall DERMA score,
Okay.
which combines all 4 of these elements into one comprehensive score, and each element is weighted differently based on its importance.
So it's flexible. It could be customized based on what matters most to a specific company.
Exactly, and that's one of the great things about DERMA. It's tailored to the organization.
So can you give me an example of how this might play out in a real-world scenario?
Sure. Let's imagine a company, we'll call them ABC Corporation. They've invested in good security measures. They train their employees. They think they're ready for anything. But let's see what their PAIR and DERMA scores actually reveal.
All right, let's find out.
Maybe we'll uncover some hidden strengths, or maybe some areas where they need to step up their game.
Stay tuned.
We'll dive into their assessment in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, so we're back. We're talking about ABC Corporation. They think they're pretty secure, right?
Yeah, they seem to have their ducks in a row.
Yeah. Let's see if their confidence is actually justified.
All right.
Let's take a closer look at their PAIR and DERMA scores.
Sounds good. So first, let's evaluate them through that PAIR formula lens. Remember, we're looking at how human behavior impacts their cybersecurity, specifically precautionary measures education and awareness adherence to protocols and responsiveness to emerging threats.
Okay, so hypothetically, let's say their scores for each of those elements are 4 for precautionary measures, so pretty robust security measures.
Okay.
3 for education and awareness, meaning they've got some decent programs in place, but maybe you could use a little fine-tuning. What about adherence to protocols and responsiveness to emerging threats?
Okay, let's give them a 4 for adherence to protocols, which means generally be good at following those security rules. But for responsiveness to emerging threats, let's say they get a 2 suggesting they might be a bit slow to adapt to new threats, a little behind the curve.
Interesting. So they're strong on prevention, but maybe lagging a bit in agility.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
How does that all translate into their overall PAIR score?
All right, let's plug those numbers into the formula. HFCS equals P plus E times A plus R, which gives us 4 plus 3 times 4 plus 2, a PAIR score of 42 for ABC Corporation.
42. Okay. So what does that tell us?
Well, remember, a PAIR score between 30 and 51 puts them in that medium range. Not terrible,
Right.
but definitely room for improvement.
Okay.
That lower score in responsiveness to emerging threats, that's a bit of a red flag. They need to be more proactive, keep an eye on those new threats, evolve their defenses.
So maybe a bit of a reality check for ABC Corporation?
Yeah, I think so.
They need to shift from reacting to being more proactive.
Exactly. You can't just wait for something to happen. You got to stay ahead of the game.
Right. Okay. So let's move on to their DERMA assessment. How do they handle those real-world cyber attack simulations?
Okay, so for this example, let's say ABC Corporation did pretty well overall. They got a DERMA score of 85.
85. That's pretty impressive, right?
It is.
It seems like they have a pretty high level of incident response maturity.
Yeah, they've got well-defined processes, a skilled team, and they can execute their plans effectively under pressure. They can handle those curveballs.
So they're good at dealing with incidents when they happen.
Yeah, they're good at putting out fires.
But thinking back to their PAIR score, that lower responsiveness to emerging threat score, could that be a weakness, even with a strong DERMA score?
That's a great point. It could be a blind spot. They might be great at handling known threats following procedures.
Right.
But what happens when something new, something unexpected comes along?
They might not be as prepared.
Exactly. And as we know, cybersecurity, it's full of surprises.
Yeah. It's like being a chess master. You've memorized all the classic openings.
Right.
But then your opponent tries something totally new.
And suddenly you're lost.
Exactly. You got to be able to think on your feet, adapt to any situation.
Agility, continuous learning, that's what it's all about.
So we have this interesting contrast with ABC Corporation middling PAIR score because of that low responsiveness score, but a very strong DERMA score. How do we reconcile those two?
Well, that's where the Integrated Cyber Resilience Score, ICRS, comes in. It brings together PAIR DERMA and that system complexity score to give us a complete picture.
Okay, so how do we calculate ICRS?
The formula is ICRS equals CRS times HCS times DERMA.
Okay.
For ABC Corporation, we have their HCS, their PAIR score, at 42 DERMA 85, and let's say their system complexity score, CRS, is 0.14.
All right, so plugging those numbers in, we get ICRS equals 0.14 times 42 times 85, which is, let me see.
About 500.
Okay.
But remember, this isn't on a scale of 1 to 100. It's a composite score.
Right, but generally, a higher ICRS means a stronger cybersecurity posture.
That's right.
But we still need to consider those individual components.
Absolutely.
We can't just ignore that low responsiveness score.
No way. A high ICRS doesn't mean you're invincible. You still need to look at the details. Find those weak spots.
Okay, so to get a clearer picture, we need those high, medium, and low ranges for each component.
Exactly. It's all about context.
Right.
For normalized scores above 0.75, that's generally considered high strong performance.
Okay.
Between 0.5 and 0.75, medium room for improvement, and below 0.5, that's low potential area of concern.
This reminds me, wouldn't it be great to have one unified formula that combines all of this system complexity, human behavior, incident response into one holistic score?
You're thinking like a cybersecurity pro. That's where the unified formula, or UCRM, comes in?
Okay. Tell me more.
One way to represent the UCRM is UCRM equals alpha times HCS plus beta times CS plus gamma times DOMA.
Okay. So UCRM stands for Unified Cyber Resilience Metric.
That's it.
Okay. HCS is the Human Cybersecurity Interaction Score.
Yep.
CS is System Complexity. And DERMA is the DERMA score.
You got it.
And I'm guessing those Greek letters, alpha, beta, and gamma, those are the weighting factors we talked about.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. You can adjust those weights based on the organization's priorities.
So one company might prioritize human factors. Another might focus on system complexity.
Exactly. Tailor-made cybersecurity.
Okay. Let's imagine another company, Tech Corp. They're a medium-sized tech firm.
Okay.
And they want to use this unified formula to assess their cybersecurity. They've decided to treat all the elements equally.
Okay. So human behavior, system complexity, incident response, all equally important.
Exactly. They want a balanced view.
Good approach.
So each element would have the same weight in their overall score.
That's right. Let's say their HCS, their Human Cybersecurity Interaction Score, is 75.
Okay.
Their CL system complexity is 65, and their DERMA score is 80.
Pretty solid scores.
Yeah, they're doing well.
How do we use the unified formula to calculate their UCRM?
Okay. Since they want equal weights, we could assign 33.33% to each factor.
Okay.
But to make it easier, let's round it slightly. 33% for HCS, 34% for CS, and 33% for DERMA.
All right, so their UCRM score would be 0.3, 3 times 75, plus 0.3, 4 times 65, plus 0.3, 3 times 80.
Yep, that's it.
All right, everyone, grab your calculators, see if you can figure out TechCope's UCRM score. We'll reveal the answer and what it means for their cybersecurity when we come back for the final part of our deep dive. All right, welcome back. We left you hanging with that UCRM calculation for TechCorp. Did you get a chance to crunch those numbers?
Hopefully it wasn't too tricky. Let's see if your answer matches ours.
Drum roll, please. What's their UCRM score?
TechTorp's UCRM score is 75.
75. Okay. Right in line with their individual scores. Makes sense, since they wanted to weigh each element equally. Seems like a decent score. But as we've been saying, it's not just about the number itself.
Right, exactly. It's about using that score to understand where they stand and then where they can improve. We know their system complexity is moderate, their human cybersecurity interaction is good, and their incident response is strong. The question is, what's next? How do they use this information to get even better?
And that brings up the whole weighting thing. How do you decide the right weighting for each element in that UCRM formula? Every organization is different, right?
Absolutely. One size fits all. Doesn't work in cybersecurity. One company might be super tech-heavy, so system complexity is huge for them.
Makes sense.
Another company might have tons of employees working remotely, so human factors, security awareness training, those are critical.
So how do you find that perfect balance for each organization? Seems complicated.
It is, but there's a process. Think of it like building a strong, resilient cybersecurity framework brick by brick.
Okay, I like that analogy. Walk me through it.
First step, thorough risk assessment. Figure out which cyber threats are most likely to target your organization. Consider your industry, what kind of data you handle, your overall attack surface. This helps you prioritize focus on the most important things.
So it's like scouting out the enemy, figuring out where they're most likely to attack.
Exactly. Next, talk to everyone, stakeholder engagement, get perspectives from different departments, IT security, legal management, even frontline employees.
Because everyone plays a role in cybersecurity?
Everyone, from the tech experts to the people who might accidentally click on a phishing link.
Right, makes sense. What's next?
Look outside your own walls, benchmarking. Compare your practices to industry standards, best practices. See what other companies are doing.
Learn from the best.
Exactly. See what works, what doesn't work. It can be really eye-opening.
Okay. What else?
Don't forget to look back, historical incident analysis, study past attacks, what vulnerabilities were exploited. How did they get in? What worked to stop them? What didn't work?
Learn from your mistakes and from the mistakes of others.
Right? Use that knowledge to strengthen your defenses. Then take a good hard look at yourself, capability maturity assessment. How mature are your cybersecurity practices? Where are you strong? Where are you weak?
Be honest with yourself.
Brutally honest, so you can focus on the areas that need the most attention. Then put your skills to the test simulations and exercises, those cyber war games you talked about. See how your team responds under pressure.
Yeah, like a fire drill, but for cyber attacks.
Exactly. You might discover weaknesses you didn't even know you had. And finally, the most important step, continuous review and adjustment. Things change fast in cybersecurity. Threats evolve, technology changes. Your company's priorities might change too. Those weights in the UCRM formula, you got to revisit them, fine-tune them, make sure they still reflect reality.
It's a constant process, always adapting, always improving.
That's the key. And one more thing, don't get too caught up in your strengths. Don't think that just because you're amazing at incident response, you can ignore training your employees or fixing system complexity issues.
Right, it's all connected.
Everything matters. Cybersecurity is holistic. Focus on those improvement areas. Keep your assessments balanced and adjust those UCRM weights as needed. That's how you build true resilience.
This has been a fantastic deep dive. So much to think about. But I think the main takeaway is cybersecurity is a team effort. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Stay informed, stay proactive, and never stop learning. That's the best defense in this crazy world of cyber threats.
Well said. One last thought for our listeners. How would your organization handle a Burma assessment? Something to think about.
Until next time, stay vigilant, stay curious, and stay safe out there.
Thanks for joining us.